Yeah, it really does seem to have come through at the 11th hour, because it really wasn't clear what was going to happen if Iran hadn't put this proposal forward by the end of Friday. So I think there's a sense of relief here, at least as far as mediators are concerned, that this is an opportunity to to sort of move the negotiation or the talks forward. I think everyone here will be looking to see what President Trump has to say about it. I don't think the mediators here will be sharing details. They'll leave that, as they have done for President Trump and his interpretation. We don't have details of precisely what Iran may or may not have put forward there. However, having talked with Iranian officials just a couple of hours before that document was released or passed over to Pakistan, they suggested that a way to get into talks would be for the US and Iran to simultaneously drop their blockades on the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it's not clear to us if that is intended to have any conditionality, what that conditionality may look like, how that may be interpreted by President Trump, if that's what indeed the Iranians are doing at this moment, and that's not fully clear to us right now. But the thrust of what the Iranians were saying was, they really don't trust the United States. They really don't trust President Trump, because they've been in this position of sort of feeling under pressure and under threat to respond, and that they've gone along with talks, but that's ultimately led to a resumption of attacks on them. So there is this sort of breakdown in trust. So it's not quite clear what Iran is going to look for if it goes into talks to ensure that its interests, as it sees it, and right now that is absolutely the Strait of Hormuz, and they want to have control over it. They want to have influence going forward. We heard that from their supreme leader yesterday, from the sort of highest authority, that they want to be part of a new administration for the Strait of Hormuz because they believe it can bring economic benefits to Iran. It's hard to reconcile that kind of language, particularly if it's sort of tied in to conditionality around the lifting of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. But it would fit with what we were hearing from the Iranian official earlier today, that they don't trust the United States. Who is going to guarantee the Strait of Hormuz was one thing that we heard. So as we wait to hear how the United States, how President Trump reads this document, this is an insight to the position of Iran, a complete lack of trust, wanting some sort of guarantees that they enable themselves or others give to them in this situation. And not clear at all if anything substantial is in this new document about the nuclear issues, which are so important to President Trump.